Benvenuti in cucina! Welcome to my kitchen. Today, we're going to make and saute mixed mushrooms alla Don Vincenzo, a shrimp fume to accompany a wonderful saffron risotto. So easy to make, but so tasty. And salmon with sauteed broccolini. This is the perfect meal to have for a romantic get-together. And let me share with you a few secrets on how to make any dinner party magical. Come for the recipes, stay for the stories. I remember it's one time that one of the friends of my father, a very well-to-do businessman, invited everybody in the group to join them, and this was summertime, to a town known as San Martino delle Scale, which is right above the town of Palermo. And for some odd reason, in summertime, when Palermo is so hot, in the 90s, almost going into the 100s, high humidity, San Martino, because of the winds, was very cool in their 70s, maybe low 80s. It was just a bit of paradise. The reason why I was so excited to go to the party is because there was a girl, I was barely 11 at the time, or 12, I was right before my teens, that I thought was very cute and I wanted to talk to her. She was the daughter of one of the friends. So usually when we would go to these parties, we would all get together, the boys and girls would go out and play in the woods that were nearby, and then for lunch we'll come back. Mixed mushroom alla Don Vincenzo. In case you don't know, Don Vincenzo is my dad. And the technique that he taught me on how to actually cook this mushroom is very unique because it renders a flavor the likes of which you've never seen before. And it's very simple to make. Let me show you how to make it. Well, this is a very difficult operation. What we have in here are cremini mushrooms and white button mushrooms, as common as they come. The only bit of information that I can give you is that we basically cut them in half. I would like to have as much as possible of the surface available for having the contact with the metal of the pan. I would like to brown them softly. The wider surface gives me this wonderful finish that I'm seeking. But it's not just the way you saute them, it's the flavoring that you give them. What we have in here is dry porcini. By making a powder with the porcini, we're able to really give them almost a mock porcini flavor. It's very inexpensive mushrooms available every day, but with this trick, we pick up a flavoring that you would have to spend quite a bit of money to find fresh porcini. But it's not just these mushrooms that we're going to be using. We're also using shiitake. Shiitake, as you can see, is just the caps that I'm using. None of the other parts of the mushroom. And shiitake mixed together with the cremini, mixed together with the white button mushroom is a wonderful, wonderful combo flavor. So a little bit more of the porcini powder. And the last thing that we're going to do is the Stellino special rub. Onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, salt and pepper in equal parts. At this point, you want to mix them all together gently. And what we're going to do afterwards, we're going to let this for 15 minutes to sit and rest. So here we are. The oil does not need to be super, super hot, but we want it to have it warm enough that welcomes the mushroom. One of the things that I like to do, especially when I have the time, especially if you're cooking for a crowd, you really cannot do this, is try to put as many mushrooms as I can with the face down. Why? I really want to make the toasting of the mushroom to have the largest amount of space in terms of an area that the heat can get to it. You see the edge right here that the mushroom does have on this? That is the beginning of it. Now, when we get to this point, one of the things that I like to do, I like to add a little bit of butter. Together with the butter, a little bit of finely chopped onions, as fine as you can. Want to stir a little bit about. Look at the color that they're already picking up. And this is really, for me, the part that makes it super fun. That color that you see right there is exactly the flavoring that we're looking for. Very important addition that I want to make, and that is the parsley. Chopped parsley, which is fantastic with this combination of flavors. And the last thing is to add a little shot of marsala. Now, at this point, I stir everything around because I want everything to pick up the flavor that the marsala is bringing into this dish. And this is truly what makes it super interesting. At this point, there are two schools of thought. Some people like to basically have this continue cooking on the open with basically everything evaporating out and the juices reducing. But I like to do almost an effect that's very similar to the Dutch oven effect. I'm going to put the cover on top, I'm going to lower the heat, and I'm going to let it cook for a few more minutes. My dear friends, the mushrooms are ready to plate. Look at this beautiful coloring that they have, the flavoring that's in there. I've turned off the heat. There is an enormous amount of heat left in the pan, as you can imagine, because of the conductivity of the copper. The last touch that I want to do is one more little dollop of butter. Why? I want for the sauce to be abundant, and I want it to be creamy without the cream and with the butter. And by stirring things around, as the butter moves around, it will not separate, rather it will create a cream-like consistency. We're done. Now, let me show you how to plate it. Imagine as you cut through with every bite that you take, this opens up all these promises for all those other dishes and I'll come next. And that's the beauty of the perfect appetizer. It makes you want to stay at the table. It wants you to wait for all this beautiful truth that will come later. See, I don't think of dinner as if dinner is something where people sit down and eat. I think of dinner as a movie. And this is the beginning of my movie. And this is how you make sauteed mushrooms alla Don Vincenzo. We get to the party, it becomes obvious that my father is expected to cook it. My father is suddenly super happy. So he starts out and immediately with his jacket on, with his vest on, he gets in front of the barbecue and he starts putting the meat on and he starts brushing it and the smoke coming out. And for a moment, I remember looking at my dad and then looking at my friends in the back, going, Nick, come with us. And thinking, what do I want to do? And something extremely important happened at the very moment. There were two worlds. There was my father sweating, his clothes all messed up, with a cigarette dangling on the side of his mouth. And all these other people around him in the finest of clothing, all custom made, looking fantastic with their elegant shoes, their elegant watches. And I was looking at these two worlds, my father doing the cooking and them looking at my father doing the cooking. And right there and then, I wanted to be that man. Today we're going to make a shrimp fume, and then we are going to use the shrimp fume to make a saffron risotto with shrimp. Come on, let me show you how to make it. The first thing I'm going to show you to make is how to make the fume. Fume in Italian is fumetto di pesce. What does it mean? Very simple. We start with the chicken stock. If you don't have chicken stock, water will be just fine. What we're trying to do in this purpose is to create an inexpensive and very efficient way of making a stock that has the hint of flavor of the shrimp in it. What we have in here is the shells of all the shrimp that I used. Together with this, we're going to put a little bit of mirepoix. I told you many times before, onion, carrots, celery, chopped finely, a little bit of parsley for a little bit of flavor. And in my opinion, something that kind of brings an additional bit of flavor is tomato sauce, or you could use tomato paste if you don't like tomato sauce. The last thing that we're going to do is a couple of shots of wine. We're going to stir this nicely, and you're going to bring this to a boil. And once it reaches a boil, we're going to take it down to a simmer. We brought the fume to a boil and we let it simmer for about a half hour, and now we're ready because all the flavors have come together. We're going to use this for the making of the risotto. Let me show you how to do that. First thing we're going to do, we're going to start with the butter. The butter is going to be our beginning flavor of choice for the making of this fish risotto. Extremely important for us. You could go with olive oil if you wanted, but because of the fact that I wanted to make it nice and elegant, butter to me is the way to go. Together with the butter, we're going to add a little bit of white onions, finely chopped. And all this, by the way, is being done over medium heat. We got the fume simmering in the background. They're very close to us. So we're almost to the point where it's now important for us to add a little bit of the parsley. And the reason why I like to add the fresh parsley at this point is because I want for the parsley to open up as it connects to the heat and bloom into a whole new flavor. But here is my secret weapon. This, ladies and gentlemen, these are pistils of saffron. It takes an enormous amount of flowers to just do the few things that I've done, but the flavor that comes out of this is astonishing. This risotto is quite popular in Italy with the saffron flavoring to it. It's known as risotto alla milanese. At this point, the next thing that we want to do is to add our shrimp. I cut the shrimp in small pieces, but still fairly big. You want it to have nice and robust and full of it. The shrimp is starting to pick up a little bit of color, and this is where we add now our rice. The rice that we're using is not regular rice. This is carnaroli rice. It's rice that is meant for the risotto. If you don't find carnaroli, what you can use is arborio. Arborio is another type of Italian rice that does a fantastic job for us. What you want to do at this point of a medium heat is stir everything around, and you want to make sure that the rice picks up a little bit of a toast. One last bit now is the Nick Stellino secret rub. Onion powder, garlic powder, salt, pepper, paprika. And when you get to this point now, is where we need to start placing the fume in here. And there is a technique on how to do that right, and let me show you. This puts us in a position in which we are able to avoid placing the shells of the shrimp into the risotto, and we put this back in there and we'll use it again when we need it. At this point, what you want to do is stir and continue to stir until all of this is absorbed. As you can see, the yellow color of the saffron is starting to flow through. You see some of the pistils in there. It's just beautiful. The one thing that you want to be aware of is that you're not cooking this on super high heat, and the reduction, both in the form of the sauce, both in the cooking of the risotto, is taking place over a certain period of time. At this point, I want all of the flavor to be exclusively and intensely underlined by the fume. Why? It's the ocean. It's as if we were able to capture from these little steps that we've done an essentiality, which is the soul of the ocean. And in its liquid form, we're putting it here with the shrimp, giving to this dish the flavoring that it needs. And we're about ready now to add some more. What I like to do here is also squeeze through the shells, just to get the extra bit of it. Now, this in play, we want to start all over again. It's one of those things where the adventure continues. And as you have this on medium, medium-high, what you want to do is continue to stir it all the way through. This, for many times, used to be known as the Widowmaker. Yon says, what does it mean, the Widowmaker? Well, I'm gonna die after I eat this? No, what happens is that most men, when faced with a choice between the risotto and their wife, they chose making the risotto and be in the kitchen all the time that it takes. Why? It's a huge important thing to make sure when you serve the risotto that everybody sees who's made the risotto. So I make a big, big presentation of it. The other part of it, you really don't have any other moments to go and socialize, talk, have long conversations, because in spite of the fact that you're here, you'll be surrounded by your friends, everybody drinking and talking and telling stories. Your main thing here is to make sure that everything is moving along. You'll be paying attention to the color, you'll be paying attention to the way the shrimp is plumping up, you'll be paying attention to the way in which the rice is plumping up, and this is the real telltale of a person who loves risotto as much as they love life. As you can see, the risotto is ready. I should walk away and take the pan with me and eat it all by myself, but if I do that, my wife will shoot me. So I say to her, Nancy, I love you. Let me share this risotto with you. But before I do that, we need to do something quite important. This is softened butter. Why is this important? I'm gonna turn off the heat and I'm gonna fold it into it gently. Just like this. At this moment, you're able to pick up all the flavors. Do you remember how liquid it was before? Our constant stirring prevented everything from sticking at the bottom, and this is the part where most people make a mistake. You see how clean the bottom is? Well, the risotto is ready. Now, let me show you how to plate it. It's been said that life is beautiful when you get the first kiss from the person you love. I agree with that. I did not know what life was until I got kissed by the right person. One which, by the way, I kept, and I intend to keep for the rest of my life. But unless you have risotto like this, you really do not know what risotto tastes like, because this is not just a risotto. This is tutto è possibile, and that means, translated from Italian into English, everything is possible. And here is how you make saffron risotto with shrimp. I love dinner parties. That's true. I love to have people around. I love to cook for everybody. I love to share. The thing that I love the most when a dinner party takes place is being in the background and watching people eat my food. That is better than cash in the bank. It is because this food was designed and created in such a fashion that I wanted to establish a moment where whatever is happening in the world will stop and people would just focus on what's in front of them because it's so good they're enslaved by it. So a large dinner party is for me a second nature. But something far more important than a large dinner party is an intimate party. Something as simple as two. You and the person you love. Salmon with sauteed broccolini. Salmon and broccolini is not a common thing, yet they're two wonderful dishes that go together perfectly well. The broccolini pairs with the salmon because of its tenderness and its unique flavor. And the salmon with a lovely crust on the outside, still perfectly tender on the inside. It is one of these dishes that you will do over and over for every time you want to do something special with a special person in your life. Let me show you how to make it. So, what are we cooking? Broccolini. What are broccolini? Because a lot of people say, Nicolino, what are these broccolini? Broccolini in Italian means little broccoli, and really what they are is baby broccoli. Now, to be fancy schmancy, I basically have cut just the fronts of the broccolini, and I'm gonna be using the last part of the broccolini for another dish. Maybe I'll make a nice sauce with it. I do like this because the crisp is what I want to get right on these guys. Also, one bit of trickery that I've done, and you can see the testimonial to my trickery, is the red pepper flakes. I've added the red pepper flake to the oil when the oil was cold. Right now, I'm not going to put any salt or any pepper. I just want for the one side to crisp. If this broccolini would have been parboiled ahead of time, they already would be moist, and when you add them to the oil, before you add them to the oil, you want to make sure that you dry them completely. Water into hot oil is damaging, it's painful for you, explodes out of the pan. Now, we get into temperature very, very slowly, but we also have an enormous amount of control. And I want to show you what that control is. This is the ability that we're getting right now. And you can see right here, we're starting to pick up some of the darker coloring. And by cooking it on medium heat, we are not pushing this over the top. A lot of people like to cook things in super high heat to create a fantastic sear. I understand the purpose of that, but in this particular case, that is not the purpose. Also, what you're noticing is that I am not making this super loaded with olive oil in it. I want the olive oil to create enough of a division. Now I turned it, and here's another little trick that you want to see. This is chicken stock. Why is this important? You could use beef stock, you could use water if you don't want to use chicken stock. But this little chicken stock that we have is about a tablespoon through. Is going to create almost like a steaming effect. In a certain way, it's creating for us the effect that we would have had if we had parboiled the broccolini ahead of time. At this point, we like to do something similar to this. This is chopped garlic that I add at this very point. And I'm gonna let this garlic flavor the broccolini for us. But one thing that's extremely important, I'm going to lower from medium to medium low. We want for this broccolini to cook slowly over a long period of time. Our main frame of interest in this is the texture of the broccolini. They're starting to collapse and they're starting to pick up the nice crispiness that we love about them. At this point, just because I do it with everything, just a little touch of salt, just a tiny little bit of salt. We don't need to worry about pepper because the broccolini, by themselves, the way in which they are, they're already very, very peppery. At this point, what I want to do is move the broccolini to the back burner. We're going to let that cook in there over medium-low heat until they cook all the way through. And while they finish cooking, I'm going to show you how to make the salmon. So this is the piece. As you can see, what we want to try to do is to make sure that we cut it in the middle so there is equal parts of tapering on both sides. I also like to have a portion that is generous, healthy. It gives you a good taste of salmon. It gives you a good flavor. It makes you happy, but it doesn't make you too full, meaning that you can have the salmon with antecedent and a plate of pasta, some dessert afterwards, some wine, maybe some limoncello. Okay, now I'm going through the whole menu, but I do things about this thing. So what I want to do is to put a nice layer of flavor on top of it. One technique that I favor is to actually brush the outside of the fish, just as we're doing, with olive oil. And then here is the mix. The mix is very basic. It's salt, pepper, onion, garlic powder, a tiny bit of paprika, and no sugar in this particular case. Why? And why is it that I love it so much? What it does is it gives you the ability of putting together all your favorite spices. This is my favorite spice mix. Now we flavored the other side of the fish, so there is an equal amount of flavor on both sides. Now, let me walk you through the technique on how to make this fish taste absolutely perfect. What I like to do when we cook a salmon, I always like to start with the pretty phase, and I'm gonna put it down. Salmon is, in this particular case, is a fairly large fillet that we have done, and what I like to do is to cook it on medium heat, 3 minutes per side. Don't touch it, don't move it, don't do a thing. Now, I'm pretty jazzed up. I love about the crust, the way it's come out. One of the things that I've done is that I love the taste of paprika and the smokiness that the paprika does. And there are two schools of thoughts. To eliminate the paprika from the rub, in my case, I prefer to keep it. The coloring that it gives and the bite and the resilience that it has against your tongue as you bite into it, and it connects you to the salt, the pepper, the onion powder, it brings it all home. But the most important part is about to happen now. Let me show you what that is. The secret is the butter. And as you can see, there's quite a dollop of butter. Of course, in a pan like this, in this occasion, there will be 2 pieces that I'm cooking of 4. But why is the butter important? The butter creates for us a finish known in the French language as arrosé. And look what the arrosé does. The arrosé is the process of braising the fish with the butter. The fact that we're cooking this on medium heat is favoring us in many ways. One way is now braising the fish in butter, and the second part of it is that the butter is running right through it. You remember what the crust looked like before when it was dry? Now this butter is sealing the top, it's going through each one of the crevices that the fish has on the outside. You can still feel how nice it is. I had this on medium, depending on what pan you have. If you were to cook this in a copper pan, copper moves very, very fast. I would not propose for you to do it on medium, rather to do it on medium-low. And that's about it. We're almost there. We're gonna let this finish for 1 more minute and then we'll serve it. The broccolini are ready. The salmon is cooked to perfection. Let me show you how to plate it. What I love about this dish is the simplicity of it. The broccolini have an astonishing flavor all on their own. The crispiness of it, the peppery, which is natural flavor to them, but it's the garlic that brings them to the next level. The fish, which is perfectly cooked, we have a wonderful crust on the top, a wonderful crust at the bottom, and the tenderness of the fish as it will flick away the bite that you take. The little tomatoes right up here on top will create a wonderful variation to it. But what I was really trying to showcase here is how you can achieve enormous elegance with extreme simplicity. And trust me when I tell you, it is simplicity that's the most difficult thing to do. And this is how you make pan-fried salmon with sauteed broccolini with garlic. The greatest thing is when it happens, and it feels like magic. With every bite, the conversation that takes place, what ensues afterwards is a byproduct of the excitement that was created in that fashion. And you don't need to buy foie gras or expensive champagne. You can do that with a pizza and a plate of pasta. In my case, meatballs. It's the feeling that you put behind it, the taste, the respect, and all those tiny little details from the kind of forks, the type of plates, the type of knives, how you dress the table, they're just secondary. And that moment, if you do the dinner right, the person who's standing in front of you, who's eating with you, is the most important person in the world. And if you do it right, they feel that way. Now, that's a good dinner.
Action!
Welcome to the Ajax Recycling Agency. I am known all over the world for taking extremely intelligent positioning of words which are delivered with such precision, care, and attention that occasionally I even forget myself what I'm supposed to do. So allow me to remind myself by using a highly sophisticated system that's been deployed only during the last few weeks. Oi, what's that?
Cut! Very nice, Nick. One more time.